You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit.
I can finally confirm that the rumors are true. The salacious rumors with the lascivious details that I've denied on numerous talk show appearances, in the press, in the papers, on 60 Minutes. I can finally now make the public declaration, announcement, and I'm very proud to make this announcement when I say that I am hosting this year's Academy Awards. I'm hosting the Oscars this year. I am hosting the Oscars this year along with Kevin Hart's gay son and Billy Crystal. So there you have it. That's the big news. This year's Academy Awards will be hosted by Billy Crystal, Kevin Hart's gay son, and me, the boy. So I got a lot of joke writing. I got a lot of preparing in store for that. I would assume Billy was going to carry a lot of the load. However, it stands to reason a lot of that would be the responsibility of Kevin Hart's gay son, who, just to point out to those just catching that very elementary joke that I really didn't even need to make, who are finally picking up on it and just starting to get annoyed, there is no Kevin Hart's gay son. This is a hypothetical person. I'm making him up. I made him up to use him as a literary device to represent retribution in a society. Because Kevin Hart's gay son, hypothetically speaking, of course, was the reason Kevin didn't get to host the Academy Awards the first time. Because he had made a joke about if his son was gay, he would punt him like a football. And to really round out the story, Kevin Hart's gay son went on to play quarterback at Remember the Titans High School in 1956 in a not too distantly post-segregated Alabama. Roll Tide. So speaking of annoying white people, let's talk about January 6th, shall we? So January 6th, a date which will live in infamy. The shot heard round the world. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down these walls. I have become death destroyer of worlds. Now, I'm sure I lost a lot of you there, and quite frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. But that is basically the type of cherry-picking mad gab rhetoric that politicians use when discussing pretty much anything anymore, honestly. But specifically, with January 6th, we had a few delicious num sound bites of just absolute stupidity. Take, for example, first female president while acting president was sidelined with a colonoscopy. Kamala Harris compared January 6th to Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Two of the greatest sneak attacks, or one of the greatest sneak attacks, depending on who you ask and who they're employed by and who's paying them and where they keep their money, in American history. And then January 6th, which was a day, by my estimation, which pretty much went a lot like this. A bunch of people from Florida who spent too much time on Reddit decided to organize, which is never a good sign. More on growing groups and domestic terrorism later. And then this angry mob of rednecks who honestly, and I don't mean to generalize too much because they're good folk in a sense. You know, there's good people on both sides. I've always wanted to do that. Now I did check. Bucket list continues to grow ever shorter. So these people from Florida, they congregate and they decide they're going to go stop the vote. They're going to stop the steal. You feel me? Honorable folk. And they're also, meanwhile, as they make the journey from Florida to Washington, D.C., they're also going to save the children. Which, I'm not going to save the children. You're not going to save the children. Somebody's got to save the children. So do we owe them a debt of gratitude? Only history knows. So they finally get to Washington, D.C., and they're mad. And granted, what they did was wrong. It was disorderly. They stormed the Capitol. They broke in. They created terror, generally. They created genuine, honest-to-goodness terror by breaking in and screaming and taking a bunch of selfies for the most part. Of course, there were some undercover FBI agent provocateurs involved who were aggressors, I would imagine, which resulted in a few, D.C. Metro Police officers losing their life, unfortunately. And then there was, a few police officers on duty during January 6th who were not killed, but ended up killing themselves later. I think the count's up to like 4, maybe. The point is, I have a lot of theories about what happened January 6th. But I don't really think the people from Florida, as dumb, stupid, unnecessary, impractical, and generally a drain on society at large, I do not feel like they're the ones mostly responsible for all the fuckery that occurred. Because let's consider, and this is a theme I've talked about before, it's not just enough to, if you want to be informed, to follow the news. You got to do that. But you also got to remember what you learned. And keep that in your mind as you learn new shit, because there are a few elements at play. First, we can all remember one of the first things that came out about January 6th being a little tiny suspicious and vicious. I meant to say suspicious and fishy, but I said vicious. And now I'm wasting time explaining why I messed up those very explainably difficult collection of words. And now I'm continuing to waste time because I'm just playing with the construct itself. But one of the first things to come out about January 6th being a little fishy was the fact that the FBI apparently had real-time informants within the mobs of idiots from Florida, I guess, if we are to believe the story, who were acting as idiots from Florida, I guess, if we are to believe the story, but were secretly FBI informants, whether they be full-blown FBI agents like undercover or just, idiot oath keepers who they flipped because they, found a stash of something they weren't supposed to have. You fill in the blanks, because, again, we're dealing with people from Florida. That's why Florida, that's why duh is on the end of the state. Because when you hear something bad happen and you hear it involved people from Florida, the appropriate response is duh. Florida. Of course, Florida, we broke into the Capitol. Florida, we're getting arrested by the FBI. Florida, some of us are undercover and we actually work for the FBI. So that was one of the first things to come out. That was a little weird. That's a little suspicious. But all right. I'll play ball, FBI. I'll play ball, J. Edgar Crossdresser. I'm down. I don't want anyone looking around. I'll play ball. I understand you guys infiltrate from within, and that's how you prevent threats. Domestic threats. Sure. And then there was that story. You remember it was found out that a couple members of the Proud Boys, active members of the Proud Boys, and the Proud Boys being a group, a far-right group, I guess that's fair enough to describe them. I don't fucking know. It sounds fair. So the Proud Boys, a group highly involved in the events of January 6th, it was revealed that there were 2 active members within a Proud Boy chapter who happened to be undercover Iranian spies, fuckface. That's a weird element of that. So we have the January 6th insurrection that was mostly the responsible of Q-tards from Florida who just spent too much time in the sun and time inside, pain pill mills. Also infiltrated by the FBI. Also infiltrated by Iranian intelligence. All right, I'll play ball. All right, fine. All right, now we're starting to really ask questions, and it pains me to say this. It really does. It really sucks. Ted Cruz from Texas, which is a place not much better than Florida, he had a chance before Congress to ask the assistant executive director of the FBI, point blank how many FBI agents were involved in the events of January 6th, to which the assistant executive FBI director responded, I cannot answer that. Not a no, not even a yes, because at this point, honestly, my argument to the few of us paying attention and following the fact that we're all just getting disrespectfully lied to like children. Basically, this is the equivalent of when your parents would spell things, in front of you, but you're like, hey guys, I'm 13 and I'm already, preparing for my SATs. I can spell. Stop insulting my intelligence. That's what the fuck they're doing. But most people don't care or pay attention or understand how it would relate to their life at all, because all they think is, well, I know where I was January 6th, wasn't in Washington, so I got nothing to worry about. Here's my browsing history. You numbnuts, you Flora dum-dum. So that's a little strange. Because, it's not like the FBI has a long and storied history of infiltrating, labeled radical groups of Americans who've had, throughout history, some counterculture opinions. Some of those opinions have gone on to become very mainstream opinions, like women's suffrage, though that's up for debate depending on some dudes, if you ask them, or the Black Panthers. There's been groups that the FBI realized might, be powerful. They might have a message people are interested in hearing, might join and might take action, might actually get involved in the American process. We can't have that. I'm J. Edgar Hoover, and I got a lot of weird shit to hide. I'm a secret king. I don't know how much I'm just broad stroke rewriting history to make sense in my own head, but we need villains, and we need heroes. And that's how I understand things. I don't think I'm the first one to come to that revelation. So the FBI has a long history of infiltrating groups like the Black Panthers. COINTELPRO. They'll join, they'll be down, you dig, power to the people, and then they'll lock up those people on their third strike. And the person who really fucked with that might go on to become the vice president. And she might even go on to become the president whenever the sitting president is sitting with a doctor's finger up his ass, which for some reason takes 3 weeks to recover from, which I kind of get if you're Joe Biden. I would imagine, one thing I actually don't want to imagine is Joe Biden's asshole, but unfortunately I will now make all of you do that. So just for those in the back, Joe Biden's asshole. But enough about fine art. Hunter, go paint that. Go paint your father's asshole and sell it to a Chinese company. That's who I really think at some level has to be behind what happened January 6th. Because, like I said, I reduce things to good and bad because there's some element of that is just what this all is. But also it's very easy to break down and process. And now you got to think, January 6th, the bad thing. We have, I wouldn't say a crazy amount of evidence, but we certainly have enough to make you go, hold the motherfucking phone. What was our own government doing? Why does this feel a little provoked or staged in some way? And you got to remember, January 6th, in a lot of ways, acted as like this culmination of the wild summer we had previously that kind of erupted with the murder of George Floyd at the foot of Derek Chauvin. And that tension, all those protests, the political climate that summer, which was pretty fucking crazy. If you looked at some of the things spray painted on highways and billboards, it was fucking wild for a minute. All of that kind of felt like culminated January 6th because I don't really know how you felt. I don't honestly truly give a shit. I'm here to explain how I felt. But I really, looking back, was fucking anxious. I was very nervous leading up to the election because it felt like this was a powder keg that we were just it felt like actually, the volcano in Yellowstone was going to erupt this time. It really did feel like there was nothing we could do except brace for a schism that could maybe result in several different countries within the United States. It really wasn't a good time. It was a little tense. It was a little tight. You feel me? You understand me? Unlike Joe Biden's asshole, for those in the back, it was tight. Do you feel me? So January 6th kind of was like this ultimate culmination of all of it. So all of those things, all of that was bad for the country. It splintered people. It divided people. It broke up homes. You couldn't go on Twitter without reading articles about how do you not murder half of your family this Thanksgiving. You remember that? And then Facebook would say, hey, are you worried you or a family member might be becoming conspiratorial? It was all an element of weird. You couldn't put your finger on what the fuck was going on, but you could tell some people were getting sloppy and they were leaving trails of the fact they were fucking with it in the first place. Now, who fucks with things in the first place? Enemies of a working thing. Our enemies are Russia and China. By and large, those are the problems. The Middle East is an issue. I know we got some people we like there, some people we don't. I know that changes. I know we install regimes. I know we topple them. I know we replace them. I know we're fucking involved. But for all intents and purposes, the Middle East is a sandbox that I believe we should just allow to continue to blow up itself for the rest of time. Because, god damn it, we've tried, people. The differences in theology are nominal at best, motherfucker. The difference in Sunni and Shiite has to do with someone's fucking uncle. I'm actually not even making a joke. I am 97% sure, forgive me Allah, hamdu Allah, I'm pretty sure the difference is a matter of someone's brother or someone's uncle. So let that be. We're not solving that. Now, Russia, Putin, a tasteful fella. Putin is the perfect villainous, yet successful dictator. He is the perfect Cold War era villain, mastermind, but he has the respect of Russia. But Russia is people who will never be the leaders of anything. They're hardworking folks. They've had belief in religion and individuality beaten out of them for 100 years. They murdered Anastasia before she had a chance to make that wonderful animated movie with Disney and the rest of her family. They put Rasputin's dick in a jar. The man who was responsible for Russian citizens murdering the beloved royal family, they canonized him by pickling his Russian dick. So that's who we're dealing with in Russia. So no matter how much Putin wants to whip them all into shape, no matter how big Russia is, no matter how much it's fucking Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, and Siberia, and again, Rasputin's pickled dick in a jar, I'm not really worried about Russia that much either. Even though, if you are to believe the story, they are pretty much responsible for all the fucking brainwashing MKUltra shit that's happened in America because we got wind that maybe Russia was doing it. I don't know if I buy that much either, and Edward Snowden. But still, I'm not really worried about Russia as much as I would be worried about China. Because China, and I've never met anyone who works for the Chinese government that I'm aware of, but I just get the sense that they all must be thinking like, mwahaha, plan is coming together. That was a little dicey at the end of that. So I think somehow China had to have been responsible for January 6th because January 6th was a culmination of what felt like a very strategic and months-long disinformation attack against us by an enemy because it seems like the easiest way to topple a successful country is to divide and conquer. Everyone's heard that. All that the fuck happened over the summer, culminating in January 6th, were events that divided us, making us susceptible to conquering, right? So logically, I land on China has to somehow be involved. Now, I don't know how weird and entangled it gets at the very tippy top of the shadow government. I don't know what to call that, whatever, but you know it exists to some extent. I don't know how crisscrossed applesauce it gets up there to the point where maybe China somehow is influencing the FBI to act undercover, allegedly. That's probably a reach. That's probably not happening. It's not like there would ever be anything that blatant. Like, that'd be like as ridiculous as saying the current president's son would be a finger painting artist selling his works to Chinese businessmen having previously sat on the boards of companies over there. That would be impossible. That's not ever going to be a thing. You'd be laughed out of town if you thought that was the case. But mail in your ballot, fucko. So I might be making a reach there, blaming China, but boy, I love to blame China. I do. I'm proud to be an enemy of the state in China. I hope I am. Truly, and I know I've said that and then backed off before, but I am. I'm going to say it with my chest. I'm proud to be an enemy of the state in China. And I'm also teetering on proud to be an enemy of the state here in the United States, to be honest with you. And I love America. I love this country. I love what it stands for. And I love the fact that me just saying that has already alienated some people, because I love that we can live in such an oxymoronic country that saying that can make people think you're the bad guy somehow when we're all already fucking here. I love the whole experiment of the shit. It's fucking fun and interesting. I wouldn't want to live in Istanbul. Life is probably very one-dimensional. I wouldn't want to live in Moscow. I would probably have been killed long ago. I love it here. It's fucking weird. Now, that would lead me to think, well, if we are ruling out China, why would there have been obvious and clear forces of our own government clearly egging on to whatever extent is debatable, but clearly doing their best to initiate chaos literally at the motherfucking Capitol building, their workplace? Why is that? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Why were there mysterious, stacks of cinder blocks popping up in the cities, the very same cities, mind you, where there were riots over the summer? No one ever answered that, did they? That was mysteriously just not followed up with. Kind of like that fucking mailman in Colorado who got his head blown off in the middle of the day by a man in black leather on a motorcycle, and no one bothered to ask any questions after that, except me. I promised then I wouldn't stop bringing it up, and I promise to this day I will continue to bring it up. But why would we do that here? Well, then you got to think, maybe it's because what would happen after that. Similar to how 9/11 resulted in the Patriot Act. I'm not saying 9/11 was an inside job. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. Any evidence you bring to me, I suggest you immediately don't. But what would happen after January 6th? Well, we've certainly put a fucking face to what this Q idiot, radical white supremacist, whatever the image in the news of like the absolute, whoever went to the riot on January 6th, whoever those people are, we now have a face. But more importantly, we now have a title for them. We now have a very clearly defined title in the media now. They are called, and face included, domestic terrorists. And then we have the Department of Justice, the same Department of Justice that couldn't answer questions as to how many FBI agents were involved in January 6th. They've recently announced a creation of a new division in which they will be combating domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism is a very interesting term because terrorism, a lot of people don't understand. Terrorism is not blowing yourself up in the middle of Times Square for the fuck of it. That's just crazy. That's just Sunday for some people because, like I said, this experiment is weird. But that's not terrorism. Terrorism is when you blow yourself up in the middle of Times Square, but you do it for abortion rights, pro or against. You do it in the name of Allah. You do it in the name of jihad. You do it for something political. That's a definition people really, really get wrong. So when you say a domestic terrorist, it's interesting because now it's someone who's a United States citizen committing an act of terror against their country, against their own place. And in theory, those are done to change something or because you hate the way of life. And even if, let's just say you hate the way of life here, but you are an American, you're some self-loathing cucko who's decided this is the worst place to be, is that even really terrorism then? Because what's political about it? That's just, you're being a pussy and a bitch and really dramatic, you know? Is that terrorism? Is that politically motivated? What are you trying to change? The term domestic terrorism, what I'm hinting at, feels a little too broad for me, you know? Because terrorism already was a word that I was worrying was getting a little too broad. Domestic terrorism really muddles the shit out of it. Because this domestic terrorism, this unit, what they're going to be doing, because there's been a sudden uptick in racial hatred amongst groups, radicalized groups online, white supremacy, and all of this is coming through new technology now and today. And all of this seems like they're talking about really just the people that would have wanted to stop the steal. You catching my drift? It sounds like they just kind of want your browser history, right? It sounds like in the interest of preventing another riot that we staged, we need to take extraordinarily unprecedented steps, a la the Patriot Act and 9/11, to chip away at some of that individual sovereignty and freedom we love to talk about so very much. It sounds like we want to keep an eye on disenfranchised, you know, maybe just spiritually broken white men who maybe, statistically speaking, according to Facebook and their algorithm, might be susceptible to radicalized content online that was placed there by undercover Iranian spies or people in a sweatshop in China. And then those people might get swept up so much in the words of the Quran that were bastardized by some fuckface on YouTube that was probably funded with CIA money, and the cave that he's recording his YouTube video on was probably green screen. And then that person might get sucked into this radical idea so much that he might attend one of these staged riots that result in regular folks who aren't paying attention to fucking any of this, who is everyone listening to this, I promise you, losing a little bit more of their freedom, losing a little bit more of their privacy, and just not even, most importantly and most fucking frustratingly, not even being aware of it, not even being asked, not even being given the chance to say, hey, would you like to relinquish some of your freedom and the thing that makes you a person unto yourself? Some people delightfully and gleefully would march into the abyss and say, sure, I would like ads to more correctly point me towards the sweatpants I'd like to buy online. Here, you get to see all the pornography and real estate I look at. And then there's some crazy people like me that think, hey, let me figure out who I am. Let me realize that, keep it to myself, and not necessarily have every single aspect of my life known by something, someone, or some group only trying to profit. Money is the thing. God damn it, I hate cliches, but are they accurate? Money is the root of all evil. And that happened, well, it was probably since its inception. Paper money is the death of Christ. You feel me? I can't take credit for that. That's Nas. But money is the root of all evil. Money became especially evil, just to bring it up to modern times, probably when it became literally and truly less useful than toilet paper used to wipe one's ass. Again, for those in the back, Joe Biden's asshole. Once we took away, gold backing it, now the dollar is just this thing we say is worth this thing. So it's fucking nothing. It's useless. It's fugazi. It's fairy dust. But money motivates everybody. The only reason, unless you're a psychopath, the only reason you would do anything that you know for a fact will hurt someone else is for money or power, which is a position that you think will come with more money. So anyone or anything that claims to make your life in any way more convenient easier for you to do things and go about stuff, and your shopping is now easier. The food you eat is easy. Everything is just more tailored and refined to you. If you're getting something for free, my friend, I am here to tell you, you are the product. Anyone doing anything for you is profiting off of it. The government, whether or not they're profiting financially in this instance, who's to say? I mean, how many people financially benefited off of the Patriot Act? It gave the government this ability to surveil fucking everybody. But also, and I am guilty of this myself, you shouldn't storybook narrative everything, because it's not like the government is this Goldstein Orwellian evil character just trying to bring about dystopia. A lot of times, 100% of the time, it's just made up of fucking people. Some of them lizards, perhaps, from long lineages of kings with Rh negative blood. But by and large, they're just fucking people. So a government, if you have all this information on people, the government's always in fucking debt. So I would imagine one of the ways to do that is to sell a bunch of fucking information to AT&T about our habits, what we buy, the food we eat, what, your uncle jerks off to, which is, spoiler alert, you could just sell that info for money. That's probably, that's just a simpler explanation for that. That's just some Occam's razor shit. So, yeah, maybe these attacks, these riots on January 6th, which somehow connivingly, twistedly, even though Ted Cruz of all fucking people trying to put the kibosh on it, somehow still resulted in the government getting more power and more surveillance ability, and more importantly, you having less privacy. Maybe that is truly nefarious and evil and dystopian. Or maybe it's just an example of a group of people within the government having this thing told to them that if they do, will profit them more. Probably is just that. But I pay $3.99 a month for an ad blocker. I'm a patriot. I'm an enemy of the state in China. FBI, if you want to stage riots at your own Capitol building, if you want to stage events that cost hard-working police officers their lives, whether the day of or via suicide and 2 gunshots to the back of the head several months later, think that number's up to 4. What you're not going to do is know my Amazon wish list, bitch, to quote Todd Shaw. What you're not going to do is figure out my browsing history. You don't want to know my browser history. Most of it are just freedom of information requests I've filed under fake names, looking for more information on the moon base that you're hiding from everyone. I'm getting closer. Joe Rogan, I'm getting closer. It's getting to the point where you are a domestic terrorist. You are an enemy of the state in this country. If you don't like the fact parts of your life are no longer allowed to be just for you, and you think it's a little suspicious, elements of the government are staging attacks on itself. Well, I'm proudly here to say that I am hosting this year's Academy Awards with Kevin Hart's gay son and Billy Crystal, and that I eschew government surveillance. You may not have my browser history, and I do believe the FBI was involved in January 6th. I do believe somehow, whether or not it's true, China is ultimately the one to blame. But most of all, always remember to keep a part of yourself to yourself. Join me in being an enemy of the state, apparently, here in America. The way things are headed, actually, Department of Justice, allow me, family history aside, current recruitment aside, psychic abilities aside, or forward, backwards, or front, whichever way you like it, allow me to preemptively place myself on the list as an enemy of the state. I already, every time I go to an airport, get pulled aside for additional screening, quote unquote. I don't know what that is, but somehow it has enabled me to firsthand experience routine discrimination. I am particularly of the alabaster variety when it comes to my skin tone, but I suppose to idiots of authority with rubber gloves, I look like somebody who could be talked into something. So allow me to make it difficult for myself going through the airport, to make it difficult for myself checking into hotels. Let me make this announcement loud and motherfucking clear for those in the back, Joe Biden's asshole, hosting the Oscars, Kevin Hart's gay son, Billy Crystal. And I am an enemy of the state now. And if this is the face of your enemy, I would be confused.